In this video, I'm going to walk you through a recent shoot that I did with a world-famous magician and break down the thought process and steps that it took to complete the job. And I'll share with you the magic show that he did just for me in my studio. Stay tuned. Hey gang, you know that my tagline says, I shoot people. And that's exactly what keeps me motivated as a photographer. My camera is my ticket to meet and interact with people. People that I would otherwise never have the opportunity to experience. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to photograph numerous magicians, on stage and in my studio. And I've even done images to illustrate a book on how to do magic. I can't show you any more of those, or the Secret Magician Society will show up and take me away for giving up their tricks. Recently, through YouTube, I met the amazing Matthew Furman from New York City. Matthew is a magician and mind reader who does sleight of hand close-up magic that is simply incredible. What I found fascinating about Matthew is that he isn't a stage performer. He doesn't do fancy costumes and have large pieces of equipment. Instead, he travels the world and he performs for celebrities and major corporations. His website has tons of photos and videos of him performing in front of a who's who of celebrities like Justin Timberlake, Alec Baldwin, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James, as well as a long list of corporate giants. Matthew gets most of his business the old-fashioned way, through word-of-mouth referrals, which means, yes, he is that good. But he does have a basic website that serves as a brochure for his business and potential customers. The website had 4 studio photographs that he wanted to update. So my task was not to go off and be all creative. I needed to essentially recreate the existing shots, but improve on them, so that they would be more current and have a lot more pop than the existing ones. Matthew's website is built with a black background, and you can see that the issue with the existing photos is that they look very flat, and he blends into the background since he's wearing dark colors. I knew right away that I needed to use a lighting arrangement that would help separate him from the background. Now some of you might say, have him wear lighter colors. It doesn't work that way, gang. A performer has a look or a costume that they wear, and it's our job as the photographer to solve the problem and make it work. If you take the gig, you don't get to blame the subject for their choices. You have to solve the problem. I also noticed that most of the images were shot from about mid-thigh up, and that he's holding the cards fairly low, just above his waist. So I knew that I could have him lift the cards and perform the trick a little higher and closer to his face. That would allow me to crop closer and make him appear bigger in the same space. That way, it's just a matter of swapping the photos and not redesigning the website. Lighting was going to be key to achieving my goal with these shots. But I also knew that I was going to be dealing with a subject that was holding white playing cards in front of his body and closer to the lights than his face. I didn't want harsh shadows, but I did want some depth to the lighting so that it wasn't as flat as the old shots that he already had. I had Matthew stand about 8 feet in front of a thunder gray, savage seamless paper background. For my main lights, I went with 2 Interfit Honey Badgers in medium half-dome strip boxes from PhotoFlex. The half domes are 16 inches wide by 52.5 inches tall and 23 inches deep. Now, if you've watched many of my lighting videos, I hope you've watched all my videos, I talk about the idea that with a softbox or umbrella, I like to have at least 2/3 of the light source above my subject's eyes. That way, the majority of the light is still coming from above and will create subtle shadows where our brains expect shadows. You can see that that is not the case in this setup for a few reasons. Given that these are 52-inch tall softboxes and Matthew is about 5'10", I didn't have enough ceiling height to be able to raise them high enough to have 2/3 of the light above his face. I also wanted to have a third light on the floor. I'll get to that in a minute. The solution was to raise the softboxes as high as I could and then angle them forward slightly. This way, the top of the box is closer to his face than the bottom of the box, and as a result of the inverse square law, I wind up with the majority of the light intensity coming from above, but I still get a soft and subtle light fall off towards the bottom of the shot. I mentioned the third light on the floor. It was another Interfit Honey Badger with a medium light dome softbox from PhotoFlex with the grid attached to the front so that the light doesn't spread. The light is mounted on one of my DIY baby pin floor stands and aimed up towards Matthew's hands to add some fill to the bottom side of his hands. Since the hands and the cards are an important part of the shot, I wanted to add a little fill light to be sure I didn't have heavy shadows. I also have 2 more honey badgers behind Matthew, one on each side and aimed directly at the back of his head and shoulders. I'm using 30-degree honeycombs to make sure the light doesn't cause flare in my lens. These 2 lights provide the rim lighting that separates him from the background when the images are added to his website. Last is 1 more honey badger, also on a DIY baby pin floor stand, that is placed directly behind Matthew and aimed up at the gray background to create just a little bit of a glow, which will make the background a bit more interesting if he were to use the shots for promotional purposes, and also make it easier to select him in Photoshop to create the version with no background for the website. I shot this with my Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II and the 45mm f1.2 Pro lens. My ISO was 200, which is the base ISO of the camera. The shutter speed was 1/250th of a second, and the aperture was my favorite f8 and be there. I shot tethered using the Tether Tools Tether Pro cables and tether block to secure the cable. I used Olympus Capture software to preview the images. All of the shots were done with the camera mounted on a Benro carbon fiber tripod with an Acrotech ball head. I love to hand hold, but in this case, I wanted the same camera perspective in all the shots, so the tripod was the solution. The first shot that we did was this one, with the cards fanned out in an S shape. In the original shot on Matthew's website, you can see that he's holding the cards just above his belt. So my goal was to have him lift them a bit higher so that I could crop closer. You can see here I also had him hold the cards further away from his body, which made them a little bigger in relationship to his face. I had him tilt his head to the left, which means on the web page it leads into the page. All of these little details help create more impact on the website. For the shot where he's tossing the cards from one hand to the other, I followed the same thought process. I had him hold the cards higher than he normally would and also a little further from his body to make them appear larger. We made the decision to do these action shots in real time so that there would be some motion to the cards, which helps communicate that he really is tossing them. We could have done this as a composite and inserted the cards in post-production, but it would have been extremely time-consuming and expensive. I followed the same steps for the more casual outfit on the contact page of his website. Well, since I'm shooting at f8, I have plenty of depth of field so that I can still focus on his eyes and not have to worry about the cards being soft or out of focus. For the shot that appears on the header of every page, we agreed that we didn't want to use the smoke because it has a bit of a genie feel to it. So the goal was to do the flying cards, and like with other shots, make him a bit bigger, still in the same size image that was on the website. Some of you may be thinking, why can't you just composite the cards and why can't you just make the images bigger on the website? How hard could that be? When you're working with clients, you can't make assumptions like that. If you are able to do some web design, and if you understand WordPress, which is how Matthew's website is built, then sure, you could do those things. But you'll find that most successful business people don't build and design their own websites because they're more focused on their actual business. As a result, they don't know how to make those changes, and it would cost them money. So as a photographer, you problem solve within the parameters that your client gives you. This shot is basically about 104 pickups. He's using 2 decks of cards, one in each hand, and each time he makes the cards fly, you get 1 shot. So it is a matter of communicating, testing, and timing. Just like with the other card toss, it was intentional to do it in real time and allow some of the cards to blur. The final images required very little post-production beyond the usual color, contrast, sharpening, and of course removal of blemishes. For each of the 4 shots, when I was done processing the shot, I selected Matthew from the background. Now my secret sauce, and everyone has a different way of doing this, so there's no right or wrong, all that counts is the finished result. I expand the selection by 3 pixels, then feather it by 1.5, then create a layer mask so that I can turn off the background to save the version that will be used for the website. In this shot with the flying cards, I also used a stock photo that was purchased at dreamstime.com to create a background that made the shot look like it could be used on a poster. Now that wasn't part of my assignment. I did it in part for me, and in part because I've always believed in the business philosophy of underpromise and overdeliver. Here you can see the finished shots on Matthew's website. The image that appears on the header of each of the pages, the 2 images on the About Matthew page, and the casual image on the contact page. Now I'm pleased to say that Matthew used one of his favorite words to describe the finished work: amazing. Now while I am happy that he's happy, I wanted to share this with you so that you can understand that working as a professional photographer isn't always about you and how creative you can be. This job was very basic as photography goes, but like pretty much every job I've ever done, It had a lot of small details that were very important to the client and to the client's needs. And after all, that's what you're paid for as a photographer. Now, the real bonus to this gig is that Matthew performed a close-up magic show just for me in my studio. And I have to tell you, after having spent several days shooting images to illustrate a book about how to do magic tricks, it was killing me that I thought I knew how he was going to do some of the tricks. And as hard as I tried, I couldn't see what he was doing. He is truly amazing. Be sure to check out the video of the show on Matthew's YouTube channel. The link is up there and in the description below this video. Make sure you watch it to the end and you can hear in his own words how Matthew felt about working with me on his new promo shots. Hey, I hope this gives you some ideas. Take this idea and run with it. Go create and show me what you come up with. Until next time, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe so that you don't miss any videos. And hey, don't keep all this cool stuff to yourself. Please share it with your photography friends. Remember, photography is not a competition. It's a passion to be shared. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting, gang. Adios.